All right, good to see everybody. Again, I'm Ian O'Keefe, CEO of Icona Analytics. For those of you that missed the morning, welcome to Track 2. We're going to talk about advanced analytic applications here. I will not belay our first speaker, but we're first going to hear from Javier Cuervo, who's the MD and head of people analytics at ATB Financial. And Javier is going to take us through a little bit of content on overcoming challenges in implementing data analytics, which just before you all came in, we were talking, and something that we talked about this morning that Javier hit upon is when it comes to foundational analytics and advanced analytics, you might not foundationally be as far along as you think. In advanced, you might not be as far away as you think from implementing that. So he might explore that spectrum with us a little bit here. But give it up for Javier, please.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, everyone, for deciding to spend some time with me today. I hope I'm going to bring some lessons learned from our own journey at ATB in this thing that we call people analytics. So my name is Javier Cuervo, as Ian presented me. I lead the people analytics team at ATB Financial. My background is I'm a scientist by training and a theoretical physicist by training. So I ended up in HR just by accident, but it's a happy accident so far. It's been 7 or 6 years, of which I have been leading the people analytics team. And I won't tell you my journey, that will be too boring, but I will tell a little bit of the team's journey in this business of people analytics. Where should I? Can you just click it for me?
Might be under here, Javier.
Where is it? Okay, there you go. So I will do the ATB Financial plugin also to provide a little bit of context in where we do people analytics. I will be talking about 4 challenges and our responses. And I was thinking what was the word that I wanted to use at opposing the challenges. Have we overcome them? Maybe. Are we reacting to them? I think we've been more thoughtful than that. So that's what I use response to that. So let's see if that fits the bill. Then I will be wrapping up a little bit with the main lessons, and then I will be giving a little bit of what I see the future could be, or what are the things that we are exploring in order to keep progressing in this maturity journey. I still don't know where this goes. I should know better.
It's back here.
Oh, it's back there. Okay, so ATB Financial is a regional full-service bank in Alberta. We have wealth management services in BC and Manitoba, and we have capital markets business that has offices here in Toronto and the States. But we are a crown corporation, so our mandate keeps our retail business within Alberta. We were funded in 1938. As I said, we were originally ATB standard for Alberta Treasury Branch. We are not anymore related to the government. We are arm's length to the government. We have an independent board of directors. And we were funded in 1938 as a response to the needs of the farmers in Alberta during the Depression, that the banks out east, so here, were not very willing to lend money to farmers in Alberta, so the government intervened, and that was our origin story. We currently are 5,200 employees. We are very well known for our culture. We have, in the last 5 years, or at least since I'm engaged in people and culture, we have made it to the top employer list, and including first time Great Place to Work #1 a couple of years ago. So we are very proud of our culture, and a lot of the data that we have and that we use comes in support of this culture. So this is the context in which our team has been growing. And as I said, I'm going to be talking about 4 different challenges. And the challenges I love hierarchies and taxonomies and ontologies. You could also group them into two. One is kind of technical challenge, and the other one are kind of people challenge or softer type of challenges. So and they are the clicker challenge, and this is the biggest challenge of all. So let's start a little bit, and I think I'm going back and forth with technical and people. So the first challenge, I'm calling it the organizational infrastructure channel. So we started this function, as I said, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And it started as probably many of your own teams or your people analytics function started, or it is, reporting squad. So this was the time in which many organizations were going through a digital transformation. I don't know if you're familiar with the term. And everyone was doing agile everywhere. So agile was taken out of the software development, and even HR was doing agile. We fell on that. So I entered the team as the product owner, and we were all dispersed technically within the organization. And we have kind of a mandate of provide reporting for HR, but it wasn't really that clear how that would be a structure. I had resources that I could put together for a squad and run a scrum and run our sprints and get the points and all that that comes with running things agile, but it wasn't a structure as a department. We have just moved the team that does the in-house surveys for our employees to kind of be part of that squad. But originally it was with the marketing team. So there was a listening post, and that listening post was both for employees and our clients. And really the function was a very basic HR function. There was not much that we could leverage, but that was the situation, that was the context, and that was the challenge. Along those lines, with that digital transformation, we were also moving into the world of an enterprise data lake. And that sounds really good, and we all know that probably is an advantage for everything. But then there is this little thing about HR data that no one wants to give away HR data. And you should not give away HR data. It's not only that people don't want to, it's that it is really important to keep it under close governance. So that means that there is a little bit of tension between what you want to move as an enterprise from the data point of view and how people analytics might want to either lead the way, follow alone, or just go independently rogue and then have problems in the future. So that's the context. Our response to that, and as a preface, not all of these challenges have been overcome. So that's why also I use the word response to this. And some of this is still work in progress. So if you have questions and you want a definite answer and solution to your problem, I might not have it. I'm just here to tell you the story. Okay, so our response. In a big word, we build an HR function that is ready to evolve and adapt. So in that, we moved from being a squad to actually absorb some of those resources into HR directly and created an internal. Still, for some time, it was still an internal squad, but it was all within the HR department. So we had a performance coach that will lead the people and will provide feedback to the employees and all that. And then there will be a product owner leading the work. And that was the role that I played for some time. And then after a year or so operating in that way, we decided that it was more effective to have like a proper department. So I absorbed people leading duties into that. And this is all what is happening within the context of the HR department, the people and culture department at ATV. But then we have all this digital transformation and data first happening with the organization, and extra emphasis in data governance. And alignment with the enterprise strategy, not only in data, but also business data. So how did we deal with that? So first of all, the fact that I absorbed some of the resources from IT, again, a little bit of tension there. But then what you have to do, or what we did, I don't know if it was what you have to do, but what we did is that, well, I mean, we have to be part of this change as well. Even though we know that data lake or the maturity of governance within an enterprise data lake might not be ready to hold HR data in the way that we feel comfortable, the best way to influence how that's gone, how that goes, is when being part of the people influencing data governance. So the team got very much engaged with the data governance, with enterprise data governance. I sit in the enterprise committee for data governance and AI for the organization. And we have built a very good relationship there in which they are cognizant of the needs, and the relationship has been moving from, oh, you gotta be in the lake, to what do you need from the lake so you can go. So it's very different when you are first like push, no, this is the enterprise strategy, to, okay, we recognize that we don't have all the requirements for your data to be there, help us figure that out, and whenever we are ready, then you can be on the lake as well. However, the key point here is to jump in the lake as a consumer of the data, because that's gonna help later on. So even though your data, the HR data, is not necessarily in the data lake, make sure that you have access to the data lake, because your sales data is gonna be there. And if you cannot connect these two, there is little value that you can add on the sales problems that your organization might have. So we navigated that in a way that we have full access to the lake, full access within the governance that it has, but we are not pushing all our data into the lake. And within all that period on figuring out how we are going to be operating and how are we going to operate within the enterprise strategy, it was clear that the function of the team within HR was to support the COEs within HR and to support the enterprise high-level data needs for people analytics. So, and that, again, that's still evolving, but that's how we kind of responded to that situation of enterprise pulling from one side, HR pulling from the other, not having a proper team, not having a full department. We made it up into, we are within HR, we have our own governance, we participate in the lake in the way that makes sense, and we are first and foremost supporting HR to support the business, and we support the business. So that was challenge number one. Challenge number two. This is more on the technical side, and this has been talked about a lot so far, is the data infrastructure. Like, I don't have to explain that if you recognize any of those things, probably at least half of them will give you nightmares if you're trying to pull data out of it. And to me, and I think it's clear that all these things were built on purpose to keep the data inside the system. Like, it's not a bug, it's a design thing. So it's very challenging, as you all know, so I won't spend much time here, trying to get all this data and make it work together in a way that makes sense. The other problem that was also briefly touched this morning is the technical implementations of your HRIS systems. No, sometimes it's not only that these systems were not built in a way that is easy to take data out, is that, oh God, when you look at how things were implemented, like from the technical point of view, it's like, what were you thinking? Like, it's obviously not thinking about data at all when you were doing this. And that's a challenge. You have to deal with that technical debt. And there is also technical debt on the processes that were also touched this morning, right? people move from position to position. Was this a reclassification? Was a promotion? Was a lateral movement? Was ever tag in any way within the system? First, I didn't even know those words 6 years ago. Two, no one really cares when processing that for leaders, how that goes. But they do care to understand those questions afterwards. So it's that constant challenge of getting ahead of the technical and the process debt. And yes, I guess I skipped ahead in the data management, the push to go to the enterprise data lake. So these are challenges that probably you are all familiar with. And so our response to that was, okay, so we built a fit-for-purpose infrastructure, and we stay very closely aligned with the enterprise data strategy. So, and by the fit for purpose, it doesn't mean a big thing. Like we stood up a SQL server, and that's currently still is our main data warehouse. We develop our own ETLs and our own ingestion processes within that environment. We have full control of that environment, so governance is closed. And that's what we serve data to the different reporting and analytics, but also the very few data sets that we share with the rest of the enterprise. We share it from the SQL server. So the data lake, we are one of the few that governance allowed to have that middleware in between the source system and the data lake, which it's something that you have to negotiate depending on how the strategy is. We then spent a lot on developing the data models. So the first, I think, advantage of having started as a squad with resources from IT is that we had access to an excellent data developer that then I poached shamelessly. And she developed all the backend for our function. So we spent a lot of time and thought on developing and it continues to grow to make sure that all these models that we have a formal common schema that then we can use to either a dashboard or to pull for doing some modeling or some whichever thing that we can do. And as I said before, because I messed up a little bit the order here, even though we were not jumping into the lake, we were fishing from the lake. So, and that's still the situation. So yeah, so that's challenge number 2 and our response. So just a little bit of summary: spend on data infrastructure on your side and keep it close. Okay, challenge number 3. And this is when we get into the people data and the people type of challenges again. Data literacy and governance in HR. So again, there is this tension between the governance that we want to keep around our data and around our processes. Our function is both all the transactional and operational data that every single system in the HR department would produce, but also we run the team member experience program. So we have both the surveys and the operational data, which is great because you can then start driving correlations among all those things. But then you also have that anonymous or confidential data coming from the surveys to deal with. We also have a mandate, as I said, we define our scope of mandate as we are going to do support the COEs within HR, and we are going to provide enterprise view, but we are limited in resources, so we might not be able to go into all the details for every single business unit that we have. So we have to give a little bit of data, But then you have the problem of governance, not so much on, we had the control of the data that we give, but how people are using that data, right? How many people on the side of the business don't know the difference between headcount and FTE? And for God's sakes, don't even bring a schedule FTE and other weird definitions there, right? So making sure that all these things are well known and well used and well defined, because what that matters beyond like preventing numbers from being wrong is preventing numbers from being mistrust. And trust is the currency here. Like by working with your data governance and your data enterprise, what you're doing there is you're building trust. By making sure that the numbers and the definitions are well known across the organization, you're building trust. So trust is your currency, and this is where your capital is going to be. The reality also, as we were talking earlier this morning, is that not everyone in the team, in the people analytics team, has an HR background or has experience in HR. So we have kind of a gap in how much HR data people know. And to be frank with my colleagues in the HR business partner role, there is a gap in data literacy there, right? So sometimes there is a big chasm in trying to understand what the business are, and depending on the culture of the organization or the culture of the HR department, HRBPs might be very, I wouldn't say jealous, but like they want to keep those relationships with leadership very close to them. And from the people analytics point of view is that, well, but if I don't have the context, it's harder for me to understand what the value is going to be. So these are the challenge. How are we currently navigating this in response to the challenge? Okay. So yes, so as I said, trust is your foundation, trust is your currency, trust is your capital, and you build that trust through that governance. You build that trust with actually like talking to your colleagues, like getting there in the business and with the business. You also have to strike a balance in your service model. And this is something that we learned as we went and as we did things wrong and have to do it again. At some point, we had 80 different dashboards. We have built 80 dashboards in Tableau. 4 were very much used, and then it was an exponential decay in usage of those. I'm proud to say that one of those dashboards is what we call the talent dashboard, and is the third most used dashboard in the whole organization. So that. But you also have to give white glove service sometimes and do more in-depth analytics and sit there with the leaders. And in particular on the team member experience, like we have a very organization-facing engagement there, in which our lead in team member experience meet with leaders, talk them through the results of the surveys. Our culture based a lot on our decisions on those surveys, so we are heavy on that. The part that we are really working now is that partnership with consulting. That's still a work in progress. Because of the time that I have here, I will just say this is our current priority right now, how we strengthen that relationship, what is the service model with them. We have tried a few things here and there, nothing has really worked. So if anything, this is one of the biggest challenges that we have right now. And governance engagement, again, like we were going through this digital transformation, there was a big push from the enterprise on governance. We just jumped in that one wagon. So we didn't jump into the lake, but we took the governance train. So it's you have to sometimes pick and choose what is that you're going to be moving as fast as the organization is moving, or where you want to slow down and put some brakes. The last challenge, and this is up to now, I've been talking a little bit about the foundational things that are the things that allow you to do more interesting things. What are the interesting things that we want to do right now? Or we want to get into causal analysis and we have all these qualitative and quantitative data that we want. So far, we can find correlations, but the next step is causation. Like, is this training program actually the cause that we are having more cells here? Funny story, we did at some point build a predictive model for risk, like a churn, like turnover risk. We did it at a point that we didn't have turnover problem, so that fell flat. And then a year later, it was the Grand Resignation. And we have decommissioned the model. So timing is a thing, like everything. Like, it's like your startup, like maybe, yeah. That was an interesting story. But it has to do with the use cases here, right? Like, are the questions that you're asking relevant to your business now? Again, it was really fun to try to use deep learning with the data that we have and try to make this prediction model. But the reality is that we had, like, I don't know, 5% turnover in a bank, which is unheard of. And we were like, okay, yeah, this was a really nice academic exercise, but it wasn't really adding value. So be careful of that. And this is connected with the previous one. If you work in isolation without having contact with the business, it's much harder to understand what is relevant for the business right now. So that's why that is key. And as we become more sophisticated, your data needs, and in particular data quality, becomes an issue. And also touched this morning is how you close the loop in the what you find in the data and how to make the data better. And the lesson here, or our response here, is keep collaborating with HR and other systems. Operations. So we have now this, we are calling it operations architecture, in which we are taking a data-centric approach to any new development within the HRIS and within the HR processes. IT support is meeting HR needs. So again, the data lake is now asking what you need to get there. And in terms of your maturity, we spend a lot in data developers, then the BI people, and just recently is where we are bringing the data scientists for them to do actual data science. In the past, I had a couple of data scientists, and they were doing mostly data analyst type of work. Now they are spending their time doing data science, which is great. So quickly, build trust, champion data literacy mindset across the organization, invest in your foundations, and follow the enterprise data strategy. If anything, I would like you to take from this is these 4 principles, and I think these are very applicable regardless where you are in maturity and the size of your organization. What I am excited about to keep exploring in the future here is these concepts of data islands and data meshes, just to make more of the data that we have. Obviously, Gen AI and agents, like who is not doing or thinking about that, and how we evolve our operating model into this idea that the friends here from Insight 222 have developed about the people analytics ecosystem. So with that, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great work. Great presentation, Javier. I want to ask a question, and I know we're jumping into another one shortly, so we might ask Javier questions at lunch. If you have questions, maybe sit next to him. I might. I wanted to pick on something you talked about. I think it was challenge 2, the technical debt, the process debt. So, does your team work with HR, program, process, technology owners to perhaps reconfigure broken pipelines, processes that aren't capturing and generating data sufficient for the analytic program? How much do you kind of get into that part of the operation?
Yes, that's been another focus point in the last year, I would say. So this data developer that we have in the team, she built the infrastructure and she did a great job. So she was getting bored with that. So, and she was complaining about this data is still bad. Okay, let's work about that. So we are calling it, for the lack of a better word, operational architecture, and is this ethos about having data quality at the center. So she's going through the exercise of embedding herself into any net new or existing process and workflow to try to understand where the data deficiencies are, and she's creating packages of, we're calling them data rehabilitation, so data rehab, that touch both the processes that lead to that data and the remediation that needs to happen to that data. And then that's being passed to the system team, to the HRIS owners, and then they're putting it into their backlog. And any net new work coming from the COEs have a first step in their process of engagement to talk to Heidi first. That's basically, you talk to Heidi, and then she can make the call, nah, you can move, or no, you won't do that.
So analytics by design when it comes to process and system